Today, we're going to discuss the four most important value drivers in your practice. There are four cornerstones that literally drive more value than any of the other components inside of your business. We're going to dive in and talk about those four key items.
This is The Rare Advisor, proud to be a part of the Advisor Advancement Network and home of a business model supercharged by recurring and repeatable events. Your host is Mike Walters, CEO of USA Financial. He is an investment advisor representative of, and securities are offered through USA Financial Securities, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
Hey, welcome back to The Rare Advisor. Recently, I was just at a live event for advisors speaking about various topics to help develop and grow and nurture their practice. And I discussed the four most important value drivers. There's four cornerstones that drive the bulk of the value. They're more important than any of the other components of your practice. Now, you can subdivide them and subset them and combine them together, but it keeps coming back in one way, shape, or form to these four cornerstone items. The first is consistency of revenue. The second is systems and processes. The third is new client generation. And the fourth is retention of assets and revenue through the client life stages. So let's talk about each one of those for just a moment. Consistency of revenue. The more consistent your revenue, the higher the value of your practice, the higher the P&L statement is going to be, but also the balance sheet in terms of what is the practice worth on the market if you were ever wanting to sell or transition. The great news about all this is that these same value drivers are identical for not only staging your practice for sale at some point in time or what it's physically worth in the marketplace, but also in driving a good business, a quality business, something that's throwing off the types of EBITDA and net profit that you would like. Now, that's kind of unique, by the way. I'll just take a little side jaunt here. That's kind of unique to our industry. Many industries, what stages you best for transition or sale is not what creates the best quality, solid running organization. In the financial industry, those things are one and the same. And it's really important because the way the revenue is generated creates kind of and dictates a waterfall type approach to everything else. So consistency of revenue is key. That's why recurring asset under management revenue is always valued higher than non-recurring transactional revenue. Today, you're looking at greater than probably a 2.5 times factor on your recurring revenue. You're looking at less than a 1 times factor on your non-recurring or transactional revenue. So that's your commissionable revenue and so on. On the AUM side, on the recurring side, you're talking primarily about assets under management, but obviously you've got other recurring revenue streams that could take place in your practice. Now, the one thing I'll mention, everyone wants to talk about, well, yeah, but there's these disappearing surrender charges and various other things that maybe now you can move that money and that creates some kind of a recurring type feeling. That doesn't count. Nobody's going to give you credit for that in the open marketplace in terms of calling that recurring revenue. It's just not how it works. So don't fool yourself in this category. Understand the difference between recurring asset under management revenue, greater than a value of about 2.5 times right now, or non-recurring transactional commissionable revenue, which comes in at a little bit less than a 1 times factor. So that's consistency of revenue. That's number one. Number two is systems and processes. This is what makes your business a business and not just a sole proprietorship. No one wants to buy your job. Lots of people would be interested in buying your business. So you must be able to create a cause and effect relationship between the systems and processes and the output that creates within your practice, the automation that creates within your practice, the ability to push buttons and flip levers and predict what's going to occur next, like an assembly line in your business, is the systems and processes. And that leads you to all kinds of great things. It leads you to, having one not be the most dangerous number, meaning you have a single person that you're relying upon in a category or whatever. You've got systems and processes built around it so that, yes, we have a great, super high value, important staff and teammates in our practice. But we can't be so reliant upon that one person that it blows a hole through the systems and processes and makes it not like a business. Again, systems and processes create cause and effect. No one wants to buy your job. They want to buy your business. And a great example of that is going from that cornerstone, systems and process, to the third cornerstone, new client generation. these go right together, hand in glove. Whereas we want to be able to push those buttons and flip those levers over in our systems and processes so that it creates new client generation. That's number 3, new client generation. And that's the ability to show growth beyond just market growth. And it's the ability, most importantly, to bring new assets and new clients into the practice. So new assets and new clients coming into the practice. And again, marries together with the consistency of revenue. What type of business are we bringing in new to the practice? And systems and processes. How do we push the buttons and flip the levers that will actually generate new clients? So what kind of lead gen do you have? Do you run live events? Do you run digital events? Do you have a system in place to duplicate your ideal clients, to duplicate your top 10 or 20% of your clientele? So you're getting the right types of clients, you're getting the right types of revenue, and you're able to rely on your systems and processes to physically generate new clients, new assets coming into the firm. And then number 4, once we've got that, we need to retain those assets and revenue, and we need to be able to prove that we can do that through client life stages. What does that mean? Well, a few years back, Investment News did a couple of different articles that I thought were super impactful. And I'll boil it down to the 3 most important stats on what I found in those Investment News articles and studies. First, they tell us 80% of women will die single. 80% of women will die single. 70% of widows will fire their advisor once their spouse dies. Stop and think about the impact of that. 80% of women die single, and 70% of widows will fire their advisor once their spouse dies. So they don't believe that the plan was built for them. They think it was built for the spouse who is now passed, and they believe they need someone who's now going to take care of them. So this is why it is so vitally important that you make sure that you have both sides of the couple of the relationship represented in your meetings. Speak to them. Even if one person is more financially oriented than the other, you want to make sure that, this plan is built. In fact, in many ways, you could argue probably built for the person who is least financially astute. That's what the plan is physically built for. And unfortunately, oftentimes, at least as the stats prove out, women don't necessarily believe that. So I again, not to just drop analogies and assume that it's always this way, but statistically speaking, if the man is the one who is handling the finances and now he passes away, is the spouse, is the surviving wife, is she going to go and fire that advisor because she doesn't think that plan was built for her? So pretty interesting when you dig into that statistic. 80% of women die single, 70% of widows fire their advisor once their spouse dies. And then beyond that, 66% of the children fire their parents' advisor once their parents die, because the children don't believe the plan was for them either. And so then they physically want to take those assets and they walk out the door. So keep in mind, this is why you include both spouses in all of your meetings, in all of your interactions. Make sure they understand that the plan is built for both of them. And then beyond that, have family meetings. Meet with your clientele and their families, their adult children, when they're in town. Maybe they're in town for the holidays, from Thanksgiving to Christmas or New Year's or something like that. Meet with them, run shotgun with the patriarch to explain and make sure that the adult children understand what's going on and that this is all being done in their best interest. This is extremely important so that they understand and they keep with the plan and they keep with the advisor. Otherwise, again, 66% of them are walking out the door and taking those assets. So now, stand back. Look at retention of assets and revenue and how it's important to show we can maintain that through the life stages of the client. Here we are. Number 1, think of the cascading effect here. 80% of widows die single. 70% of widows fire. I said that wrong. Back that up a second. 80% of women die single. 70% of widows fire their advisor once their spouse dies, and then 66% of children fire their advisor once both parents die. So if you add that math together, that's a significant portion of your assets eventually walking out the door. We want to prove otherwise with your practice, that you have the ability to retain a higher percentage of those dollars. So consistency of revenue, systems and processes, new client generation, retention of assets, and revenue, the four most important value drivers, the cornerstones of your practice.
This information is for licensed financial professionals only and is not intended for use in soliciting sales from the public. The views expressed represent the opinions of the presenter or their featured guest, not necessarily those of USA Financial or its affiliated subsidiaries. Industry references are generic and not intended to represent actions or beliefs of any individual or entity. Content is only presented to illustrate general principles, beliefs, or ideas and should not be construed as legal or regulatory advice. Trademark and copyright protected. USA Financial and Affiliates.